Hi guys, this is Mrs. Schoenberg, and this is part 2 of our video lecture on Chapter 11. The next part, pricing bonds, we're going to start using the tables. And when you get to the problems on the computer, there's links out to the tables, but here I have them attached. The two tables we're going to use, there's two different tables. And you might want to note that this first table is the present value of $1. And then the second table is the difference is this word annuity. Annuity means payments, if you will. So when we're doing a lump sum, we're going to be using the first table. And when we're looking at interest payments, we're going to be using the second table. So just keep that in mind. It's really important to understand from the beginning. So pricing of the bonds here, this number 2 has to do with 11.12. And this number 3 has to do, it's very similar to 11.13 homework. All right, so the selling price of a bond, how is that actually calculated when it's a discount and an amortization? So far the numbers have just been given to us. So it's actually the sum. We're going to be adding two numbers together. We're going to take the face amount of the bonds, and we're going to be using the present value lump sum table, the first one. Then we're going to be taking that periodic interest payment and taking a factor from the annuity table. Anyway, you find these two numbers, you add them together, and then you get the price of the bond. Very important right here. When you go to the tables, you got to use the market rate of interest, okay? So to illustrate, I'm actually not going to do this one because it's a face amount and you don't even have a problem like this. I think I'll start with number 2. But here is the bond contract. Southern Utah Communications. They issued the following bond. It's a face amount of $100,000. The contract rate is 12%. The interest, once again, twice a year. The bond is 5 years. So on number 2 here, I just want to point out, assuming a market rate of interest of 13%, the bonds would sell at a discount. So here's what we know. If we were going to calculate the interest payments, we would take the contract information, the $100,000, and then we would take that times the what's in the contract, which is the 12%, and then I divide that by 2. So every single interest payment on this one is $6,000. Okay. And also the face amount of this bond in the contract is $100,000. Okay, so I'm going to need to take 100,000 times a factor, and I'm also going to have to take the interest payment, 6,000, times a factor from one of those tables. I'm going to get two numbers, and then I'm going to add those together. Okay, so this here's what gets tricky though. When I go to the table, I need to figure out, if I scroll down here at the table, I need to figure out the interest rate and the number of years. Okay, so the interest rate runs along the top and the number of years runs up and down. Now this is where it's very important that we use the market rate. Okay, so the market rate is 13%. I'm going to take 13% and I'm going to divide it by 2. Because there's the two interest payments. And what I get here is 6.5%. And I also know that there are 10 payments because it's 5 years. So when I go to those tables, this is what I'm looking for, the factors that correlate to 6.5% and 10 payments. So the first table is the lump sum, which goes with that 100,000. So if I go to 6.5% and 10, and I see where they intersect, I have this factor, 0.53273. 0.53273. Running that through the calculator, you get 53,273. Then when I take the interest payment, 6,000, I'm going to use the same 6.5%, 10 payments, but this time I'm going to the annuity table. And if I look at the 6.5% and the 10, it's 7.1883. 7.1883. Multiplying that out, I get 43,133. Adding those two numbers together, okay, gets the this amount, 96,406, and what that number represents is the selling price at a discount. Okay, then on this next one here, assuming a market rate of 11%, the bonds would sell at a premium. This correlates to 11.13. So once again, let's calculate how much those interest payments are going to be. It's going to be the same because we calculated off the contract amount, and we already calculated it, and it's $6,000. And the contract rate, the face amount of this thing, is still 100,000. We got to take it times a factor, and then this is 6,000, and we have to take it times a factor. So now we're going to use this market rate. So the market rate is 11%, okay? But we're going to divide that by 2 because there's 2 payments a year. So this time we're going to be looking at the 5.5% column, and there are still 10 payments, okay? So then we're going to look at the 10 payment column. Okay, so again, the 100,000 is the lump sum. This time we're looking at the 5.5%, still 10. The factor is going to be 0.58543. 0.58543. Multiplying that out, we get 58,543. Now, for the interest payments, again, think of them as regular payments. Think of the word annuity. You're going to use the second table that has the word annuity in it. You're going to go to the 5.5%, 10-year, 7.53763. 7.53763. Multiplying that number out, you get 45,226. Adding these together, adding those two numbers together, you get 103,769. And this represents the selling price at premium. And that's how they calculate that. If you do continue on and get a finance degree, you'll start using those tables more and more, and you might even have it just memorized on your calculator. It can be done on a calculator as well. So I'm gonna hop over here to the extra problems. And on this extra problem, I'm going to get you guys started on 11.1a. And this is one of your practice problems, and this I just kind of copied out of the book. There is a check figure here, which you don't always get when you're doing this problem online through Cengage, but it's nice to know that. 11.2 is going to be for you guys to do on your own, okay? But first of all, we have a bond discount and we need to do some entries, some journal entries. So on July 1st, Danzer, they got $15 million worth of bonds. They're going to have to pay them back. It's a 10-year bond, twice a year payments. The 8% bonds at a market rate of 10%. So the contract rate is 8% and the market rate is 10%. And it does say how much cash they got up front. The interest of the bonds is paid semi-annually. So if we already said here, okay, if this is a 10-year bond and there's 2 payments per year, okay, so right off the bat, we know there's going to be a total of 20 payments. And how much are those interest payments going to be? Well, right off the bat, too, we should know that 50 million times, using the contract, 0.8% divided by 2, the interest rate on these things is going to be 2 million. We'll use that eventually. 2 million. And remember, when we do the interest, that's going to be the cash portion. Okay, so let's get started here. Journalize the entry to record the amount of cash proceeds from the issuance of the bonds on July 1st. This is the day they get, it's a 3-liner, they get this money up front. How much did they get? We're going to debit cash 768,920. These were sold at a discount. So remember, a discount, bonds payable. I'll get you that amount in a minute. And then we're going to credit bonds payable because the total amount due is the face amount of the 50 million. These were sold at a pretty big discount. So subtracting those two numbers, we have 6,231,080. Okay, I'm going to star that because we will amortize that. We're going to divide that number by the 20 payments. In fact, let's do that right here. 6,231,080. We're going to divide that by 20 because when we do the interest, we need to know what that number is. That happens to be 311,554. Okay, so we'll use that number on the amortization of the journal entry. Now we need to journalize a couple things. We need to journalize the first semi-annual interest payment on December 31st, and we're going to journalize the interest payment on June 30th and the amortization, both of them. Okay, these are going to be exactly the same. Once you figure out the payment, it's exactly the same. Now, then we're going to determine the total interest expense for 20Y1. So to do that, you're just going to add the interest expense entries from your journal entries from the last 2 things you did. And we basically already have that number. All right, so let's do some of that down here. We've already figured out what the interest payments are going to be. It's 2 million. So let's do that first. December 31st, 20Y1. This is our interest expense. This is a 3-liner. It's interest expense. The discount is now a credit, the discount on bonds payable. And then the cash. We figured out the cash up above. It was 2 million. 2 million. We also figured out the amortization amount of the discount on bonds premium, which was 311,554. Adding those 2 numbers together, we get our interest expense, 2,311,554. Now, the June 30th, 20Y1 is going to be exactly the same. Okay. Now, when it asked you for, I think I misspoke just a second ago. When it asked you for the total interest expense for 20Y1, it really was just this one journal entry that you did for interest expense. And if you notice, that amount matches the 2,311,554. Okay, number 4, will the bond proceeds always be less than the face amount of the bonds when the contract rate is less than the market rate of interest? Yes, that was easy. And then on number 5, this one I'm going to let you kind of do this on your own. But when they got this initial cash amount, this 43,768,009, you know, we can use the tables to calculate that amount. And that's what this next part, number 5, is. Remember to do your rounding correctly. But I'm going to give you some clues. Because when you go to the tables that they give you, I want to make sure you're hitting the right columns. Now, we got to use the market interest. That's what's tricky. The market interest in this thing was 10%. You got to cut it in half first. So you're going to be using a 5%. Then your number of payments, we said that up there too, was it was a 10-year, twice a year, 20. So when you go to the tables, look at the 5% and look at the 20. You're going to be taking the face amount of this thing. Is this a 50 million? Yes. You're going to be taking the 50 million times a factor from the first table using the 5% column and the 20-year row, and then you're going to be taking the interest amount, which was the 2 million. You're going to go to the annuity table to get that factor, and you're going to be using the 5% 20. Multiply those two things together, add it together. Okay, add those two numbers together, and you should come up with this check figure of 43,768,920. The next 11.2 is totally on your own. It's exactly the same, except it's a premium. So use your notes. Use what I've taught you. This should really help you out. If you have any questions, let me know.